Hello there. Thank you for joining me today. I'm glad that you decided to join me because today we're going to talk about JavaScript arrays. Now, I would like to point out that if you're not already familiar with variables, functions, or basic looping constructs, please familiarize yourself with those concepts before watching this video because we will be building on them. That being said, let's go ahead and dive in. So what are arrays, first of all? Well, you can think of an array as a bucket or a list. It's a place where you can store multiple values. It's a collection. Now, why is that useful? Well, let's start with an example. Right now, let's say that we're trying to keep track of a list of items in our cart with their price. Today, you would probably do something like this. You'd have a variable for price 1, let's set it to $1. Price 2 might be 2, and let's add one more for $3. So right now, if that's how you were to do things, you could imagine that if we had 100 items, that would get rather tedious. So arrays allow you to write cleaner code to deal with such a situation. So let's say that you did have these three variables. Let's build on this again. Let's say that we wanted to keep track of all of them together. Let's make an array. Let's see what that looks like. So we'll make an array called cart. Let's start like this. This syntax right here, the double brackets, that is a JavaScript array. It's completely valid. It is empty though. There's nothing in it. What we can do though is we can put price 1 from above, price 2, and price 3, just like that. And now all of our prices can be referenced as one JavaScript array. And I can show you what that looks like in the log real quick. Let's log our cart and see what it looks like. Well, that's interesting. On the right-hand side here, you can see that we've got this JavaScript array syntax with the double brackets, square brackets, and inside it is 1, 2, and 3. That corresponds to our prices, 1, 2, and 3. I wonder if we can just do this. Let's give it a shot. So instead of having to make our variables ahead of time, can we just put 1, 2, and 3 in here like this? Yep, it looks like we can. That is completely valid. And we get the same result as we did before. Now the benefit of that obviously is that we wouldn't need to define 3 variables before we put them in our array. So that is a much simpler way to create an array. That's fantastic. So now we can create an array, but now that we have items in our array, how do we get them out? Well, let's go there and see what we can figure out. Let's say that we're going to start with our cart 2 here, and we wanted to get the very first item out. Let's say that we want item 1 price. We can do that by specifying our array, which is cart 2 in this case, and we're going to put the square bracket. We're going to use that syntax again, but instead of putting items in it, what we're going to put in this place right here is what we call the index. So every item within a JavaScript array has an index, which is basically just the position within the array. Now, one important note is that the index in JavaScript always starts at 0 instead of 1. So if I wanted to get the first item out, I would have to press 0 now. And that will give me the very first item. So let's log that just to show it. And sure enough, 1 is what we get back. Now, let me minimize these here. In our cart, you'll notice on the right side again that if I press this drop down, it shows me this interesting display for each item. Well, what is that? Well, this is actually the index that I just talked about. 0, 1, and 2 correspond to the indexes for the first item, the second item, and the third item. Another interesting fact that's important to note about JavaScript arrays is that they are ordered. So you'll never have a situation where this 1, 2, and 3 becomes 2, 1, and 3, or 3, 2, and 1. It will always stay 1, 2, and 3 unless you specifically change it yourself. That is a very good guarantee to have. So now let's move on. We can create arrays. We know how to get single items out of an array. But let's say we wanted to do something a little bit more practical. Let's say that we wanted to calculate the total for all of the items in our cart. Well, that's actually pretty easy to do too. What we're going to use is called the for each method. Let's see how that works. So we've got our cart2 again. Let's say dot, and sure enough, there's a for each method right there. Well, how does it work? Well, you can see from this method description here that it's going to take a function. So let's just start with that. It takes a function, and the very first parameter it's expecting is a value. So let's just say that we wanted to do that, and we'll ignore the rest of these fields for now because we don't need them. You might need them at some point, but it's not necessary for a lot. So let's start with that. We're going to accept a price, and let's just close it off there. And here is our new function that we just put in place. Now, what's interesting is that inside this block, line 15 where I'm at, it's going to get called 3 different times for our cart, one for each item, 1, 2, and 3. So if we wanted to add up all of these, what we really want is another variable that we can keep track of the total with. So let's make that now. We'll do that. Var total equals 0. We'll set it to 0 because we don't know what it is yet. And inside here, why don't we go ahead and add to that total every time? So we'll say total plus equals, which means add to total, the price. So now after this for each, total should have a value of 6. 1 plus 2 plus 3. So let's see if we did it right. Yep, sure enough. There's a 6 right there that represents our total. I think that's all we're going to cover for today. If you found this interesting and want to learn more, I suggest you look at a reference site such as W3 Schools. They have a lot of good material there that you could use to learn more. Thank you.